What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for some more content for you guys as we're gearing up for the Premier League to restart. Well, actually, FA Cup this weekend comes first. We thought we'd bring you some content in terms of scout reports. So we're going to bring you 2 episodes, one for Dejan Kulusevski, one for Rodrigo Bentancur, and we're going to be comparing them to who Tottenham have right now in those positions. So right now with Dejan Kulusevski, we're going to be comparing the stats between him, Lucas Moura, Heung-min Son, and Steven Bergwijn. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to see what comes out of this. So let's get straight into it.
Yeah, first of all, we're going to look at how Kulusevski was compared to when he was in Serie A, like how his stats compared to most forwards and attacking wingers when he was at Parma and at Juventus, in those 3 seasons he was at Serie A. Obviously, he had a great loan spell at Parma where he scored 10 goals and got 8 assists in that season, got Young Player of the Year. But in the 2 seasons, obviously after that, at Juventus wasn't the strongest. But if we bring up, this is his season at Parma. If we bring up the stats here, you can see. So basically, what you're looking at is a per 90. It's basically, these are just stats comparing his stats to the rest of the league. And if you see these numbers here, that's his per 90 stats for all these metrics. So 0.3 goals per game, per 90 minutes, 0.25, all that kind of stuff. And this column here, the percentile, that means that is, if he's the higher it is, that the better that means he's the better he is compared to his compatriots. So if he's in the 75th percentile, that means only 25% of players in that league in that position are better than him at that specific thing. So the higher and the more green these bars are, the more impressive it is. Basically, right. That's what it means. If you look at they're pretty solid. This is with him at 19, obviously with goals and assists. His very impressive here. His expected assists were 0.28 per game, which is the 92nd percentile. So only 8% of players in that season were better than him. His shooting metrics at Parma were pretty decent. Some more impressive than others. He got a lot of goal shots. His shots on target was decent. His goals, 0.3 goals per game, which is only 30% were better. Remember, he's only 19 at this point, so still pretty impressive. His passing. The funny thing is here, his passing clearly. This is just passing completed. This doesn't mean passing the final third, but here his key passes 2.33. Which is 81st percentile, very good.
So is this on just that one season?
This is the one season. We'll look. This is a scout report.
His best season.
Yeah, his best season, basically. Passing types that not so relevant, but you can see through balls again, 75th percentile, pretty good. But where he usually shot creating actions, that's very good for an attacker. 4.27, which is 71st. And defensively, pressures, he's very good. He puts a lot of pressure on the opponent, successful pressures as well. 5.31 per game, which is 76th percentile, and pressures in the midfield third. Obviously, when you go to his other seasons at Juventus, his first season at Juventus, it goes down quite a bit. He's not that as impressive. His shooting isn't as good. But the passing is still pretty strong. You see key passes still 91st percentile, 2.443, pretty good.
So that actually went up.
Yeah, and they expected assists as well, 0.3, 92nd percentile. So he's a very creative player. Even that was his first season. If you look at his second season at Juventus, where is it? Key passes, it goes down quite significantly. So that's why they're frustrated with him, maybe.
In terms of these stats, that looked really strong at Parma and then they decreased at Juventus. Is that to do with him being in and around a lot better players within his team?
Could argue that.
What else could it kind of relate to?
Well, they increased, but they're very similar. So the one like it was crazy differences. It increased slightly. So I wouldn't say it's because I think that's his par. But although last season This season, in the first 6 months, obviously they've been very disappointed with him. His key passes are well down,
Right.
1.17 in the 20th percentile. So 80% are better than him at the moment in this season. So he's had a very, like, from a creative point of view, expected assists as well.
But also, he's had a lot less game time. This season than he has in the previous.
This is per 90 minutes, so this is when he has played. Expected assist 0.14. It's also
even so, if it's per 90 minutes, it's very harder to do it when you're not starting because he's coming on and just playing bit part roles. Really,
the thing that has improved though, look at these defensive stats, all near the 90th percentiles. Very strong.
And that probably is down to the new Allegri system and the way they like to play their football.
So it kind of tells me he's been told to maybe do a different kind of role. That's why maybe he's been a bit less in his attacking output. And also, you got to remember, Allegri's brought in a new formation. He likes to play 4-4-2, doesn't he? As opposed to at Parma and under Sarri. No, he wasn't under Sarri. Pirlo.
He got bought for Sarri, but got never used for Sarri.
But under Pirlo, they like to play 4-3-3, so a bit more suited to him when he's playing in a forward 3-4-3. And also at Parma, he either played on the right-hand side or he played in a attacking field behind two strikers at Parma, so much more suited to how he plays. But Allegri's 4-4-2, him out on the right hand side or in a front two, he's not as comfortable there. So maybe, but he's still putting a massive shift in. Look at that, really strong numbers when it comes to defensively for a forward. Anyway, tackles and interceptions 3.96, only 3% better than him. Interceptions only he's in the 99th percentile, so very strong. So those are his stats comparing him to his time in Serie A compared to the rest of the division where he ranks. But
so before we move on though, what do these stats tell you?
Tell me he's at Parma, he was a lot more confident in getting shots off away, and he was a lot more clinical, and he was definitely better at shooting. At Juventus, they haven't seen the best of what he can do from in terms of in front of goal. But I think creativity, key passes, which is things that we very much need in our squad. Players who can open a lock. He's pretty strong at those things, and also defensively, he's a hard worker. He's one of the hardest working forwards, especially even this season, one of the hardest working forwards in Serie A.
Does it tell you on this site about distance covered?
I don't think it has distance covered.
Because that would be an interesting one to know, because I've heard that he's one of the players that covers the most distance in Serie A. So it'd be nice to know from the actual stats what that is.
Yeah, it doesn't say here, distance covered. Unfortunately, that's not one of the stats they provide.
But either way as well, like the stats can be a bit misguiding in terms of the manager he's played under and the systems they're playing in and that kind of stuff.
Of course. But you just look for patterns, don't you?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at the moment. Where was it? Progressive passes. Where is it? Because I'm pretty sure he's very strong. He's pretty strong at progressive passes. I can't remember. I can't see. One thing he's pretty good at, actually, if you go to his best season, if you go to possession, where is it? Just one sec. And it's carries. He's quite good at carrying. And progressive carries into the final third, 81st percentile, carries into the penalty area, 1.87. He's pretty good at that, which is also something that, especially in Conte's system, we could definitely be using. If you go to his time at Juventus,
with those stats, high defensive stats, great ball carrying stats, great progression stats. Do you reckon he's one that could actually play a wing back role?
I mean, people have talked about that, to be honest, whether he could, like an inverted wing-back role. It's just one thing he hasn't played before. So, and look, to be honest, I think it is something. For example, Conte has used wingers in those roles before, like Perisic, he's used in that role. Obviously, Victor Moses, he converted into, but a bit different, but he converted him into a wing back. Ashley Young, I know he kind of turned into a wing back, but he was a winger, and he played. He was a winger, and he played on the wing back role. So I think it's one of those things where, let's say, we really need a goal last 20 minutes, and we're really looking to force the issue. He can kind of make an attacking change by putting Kulusevski at wing back and adding a forward. for example.
think
Like take off Emerson, putting Lucas on, putting Kulusevski out wide. I wouldn't say it would be one where, unless it's a game, for example, against a bottom side, bottom half table team, maybe it's one we could start with and like start with Kulusevski, try and go 2-3 up and then change. I wouldn't see him using it on a regular basis
unless he just gets completely tired of the quality that Emerson's bringing.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to use Doherty and something like that. Maybe it's something later on this season that might take place.
For example, when we played Morecambe, we put Sessegnon over on that side, and I could easily see Conte deciding to use Kulusevski in that kind of role, which he did for Sessegnon. He was a wing back. He was basically a winger on that side for that game.
Yeah.
So that's what he could use for Kulusevski. But one thing I would say with Kulusevski is he's a much more comfortable. If every time where he's really at his best is being a bit more central as opposed to being purely out wide.
Yeah.
So he likes to use the fullback as a decoy to either create space to cut inside or even find the fullback out wide. So that's where he's more comfortable. So whether making him that person who goes out wide would suit him the most, I don't know.
That's why having Adama would have suited this so much. Imagine having Kulusevski and then Adama creating that diversion for him, because Adama, no matter what, you need to mark him with 2 or 3 men. Emerson, like most of the other teams, don't really even take notice of Emerson. And he's the one that has buckets of space.
If you even go to here, this is his time at Juventus. Possession again carries pretty strong. Carries into the penalty area, 96th percentile. So like he's pretty good at ball carrying. I haven't seen this season how maybe it's gone down, but there obviously a lot of people have been annoyed with him this season. Where is he? Carries. Can't see it. Oh, here it is. Yes, he looked right down this season. So they've clearly been disappointed with him this season. Maybe he's struggled to adapt to a new position. That's just the case. But you can clearly see at Parma and even in his first season at Juventus, still those things that he's good at were still pretty consistent. If we're comparing him now to the kind of players he's competing with in the inside forward positions, we've got metrics here. This is comparing Kulusevski to. This is comparing Kulusevski's 3 seasons in Serie A as a total to Son's whole time at Tottenham, Bergwijn's whole time at Tottenham, and Mora's whole time at Tottenham. So this is not comparing anything beyond their time at Tottenham. It's very focused on that. If you look at again the creative stats. Expected assists per 90 minutes. Kulusevski is out in front, 0.27. Obviously, Son is second, but Bergwijn and Lucas really not that great, 0.12, 0.1 for expected assists. So Kulusevski a lot more creative than them two during their time. For goals and assists for expected anyway, obviously Son's out in front, but there's Kulusevski much better than Bergwijn and Lucas Moura. In terms of goal scoring, though, he's the worst, unfortunately. 0.19. Even Bergwijn at Tottenham has got more expected goals than.
That's mad. When he scored 1 goal the whole of last season.
Bergwijn per 90 minutes has more expected goals than Lucas, which is a bit surprising. But obviously, there's Son, who's much more. Obviously, gets much more goal scoring positions. But if you look at his passing.
I do expect that expected goals to shoot up under Conte, though, with Kulusevski.
Yeah.
I really do.
In terms of shooting, only Bergwijn takes less shots than him. Obviously, Son and Moura take more shots than him per 90 minutes. And for shots on target, it's pretty poor near the bottom. Bergwijn and Moura both get more shots on target per 90 minutes than Kulusevski. But where he really excels is, again, creative. Key passes, well out in front of key passes of any of them, even Son. 2.2 key passes per game. Son's only 1.7, Lucas 1.2, and Bergwijn 1.1. So he's well out in front in key passes. Completed passes that enter the final third, the third of the pitch closest to goal. He's second to Lucas, which is pretty decent. Completed passes into the penalty area, he's top, 1.57, much more than all our other attacking midfielders. And the big one here, progressive passes per 90 minutes, 3.47, much higher than anyone else we have as well. More Son and Bergwijn. So very, very creative when it comes to being the final third with his passing option. That's what people have been saying. He's very much, hopefully, a player that can help us break down teams in a low block, add that creative spark. Obviously, you can't rely on one player for creativity, but I'm thinking that he could really help us in those circumstances.
That's what I was saying as well, that maybe, we were saying that we don't have enough midfield options to use the 3-5-2 regularly. But maybe actually with Kulusevski, we can use it regularly because we can play two holding midfielders and then him just a further bit forward. And he can act as that kind of creator, the number 10. But play a tiny bit deeper as a natural number 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially is very similar to a 3-4-3. You're just moving Kulusevski from the right, essentially.
Yeah.
But I think that could definitely be a weapon we can use, 100%. Especially with his defensive stats. If we look about comparing him to our other forwards from a defensive point of view, tackles, obviously Lucas Moura we do consider a very good defensive forward, don't we? So I'm not surprised that Lucas is ahead of him in a lot of these things, but he's a lot stronger than Bergwijn and Son when it comes to tackles and tackles won. Obviously Lucas Moura well out in front though in all these things. When he's tackling dribblers, he's top. When he's making tackles against people dribbling past him, pressures, he's well out in front. Look at that, 22 pressures per game compared to Moura 17, Son 17, and Bergwijn 16. So makes a lot more pressures per game than our other.
Yeah, and I've always like associated Lucas Moura and Son with being quite good at doing the pressures. So with Kulusevski, they're doing it much better. Then that makes me very excited.
Yeah, exactly. And tackles, interceptions per game. Lucas is interceptions. He's second to Bergwijn and Lucas, but tackles, interceptions together, he's second to Lucas, 2.82, and he's 2.21. So he's pretty good defensively compared to our other players. He's definitely not going to be a liability. He's not going to be one of those players who isn't getting involved off the ball. He's one player that clearly I think Conte is going to be able to trust and rely on.
No repeats of the Gareth Bale madness from last season.
Exactly, where if you look at these Bale stats, they're not very good compared to these. I don't have them with me at the moment. If you go to progressive carries, he's well out in front. This is carries that move the ball towards the goal at least 5 yards, or any carry into the penalty area. So 7.34 per game compared to Son 6.13. So he's much better than Son. He does at least one more than Son per game, and much better than Bergwijn and Lucas for progressive carries as well. Carries into the 18-yard box. Kulusevski's leading the way. Carries in the final third of the pitch. Kulusevski's leading the way. But however, getting dispossessed, he's also leads the way in that as well. So maybe being 21,
the numbers there for the
he's
dispossessed?
a bit raw. 2.9 for Kulusevski per game. Son 2.5, Lucas 2.4, and Bergwijn 2.1. So Bergwijn actually gets dispossessed the least. Maybe because he sees less of the ball, you could argue.
Yeah, but the numbers between him, Lucas, and Son aren't that different.
In terms of what, just in general?
The numbers, what was you say, 2.9
you mean
and
dispossessed
2.7?
numbers?
Yeah,
they're not that significant.
yeah.
Between him and Bergwijn, maybe there are 0.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the top three. They're all pretty similar, aren't they?
Yeah, they are fairly similar. So I think what we can gather from this is we've got someone who's a lot better at carrying the ball and I wouldn't say necessarily dribbling, but in terms of carrying the ball into dangerous areas, he's a lot more he's much better than what we have. When it comes to creative passing in and around the penalty area, key passes, getting shot and which is passes that lead to chances and shots, he's much better than what we have at the moment. So he's definitely going to bring that element. But when it comes to goal scoring, getting shots off, he's not like anything better than what we have from that aspect.
So in terms of
but he could improve, because if it was based on that season at Parma, it was pretty much up there.
He's only 21 at the end of the day.
And
when you're looking at him compared to Son and Lucas, we always say that Son, loves getting in behind, loves hanging on the last shoulder, and and obviously getting in behind to create those chances and score goals. Lucas Moura, we've always said, is the opposite, who likes to receive the ball to feet and then to drive. So are we saying Kulusevski kind of sways more to the Lucas side of things and doesn't really get in behind that much?
I think, Kulusevski seems to be a player who definitely likes the ball to feet, likes to carry the ball. That's where his strength lies. He's not as much of a... I think he gets in behind more than Lucas, but he still doesn't get in behind like Son gets in behind defences like that. He definitely likes the ball to feet, and he likes to carry the ball himself into a penalty area and into the final third. He's also very good at playing quick passes in around the penalty area, quick one-touch passes, especially in tight areas. He likes to do that, and he seems to be a lot more creative in around the penalty area than a lot of our players. And defensively, he's still very competent.
So having said all that, when you're looking at teams that we have trouble against, potentially sometimes against like low block teams, that should help us a lot then.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to be the miracle worker. That means we're going to be amazing against these teams, but definitely he's going to help. Definitely he's going to help against these teams. Like when we played Watford and we're struggling to break them down, he should hopefully add a few more chances into the mix when we're looking to break these teams down. And he potentially does offer an option at right wing back when if we want to go gung ho. Basically, I wouldn't want him generally there, but if we're going gung ho against a team, then maybe he's an option there, I would say.
All right, well, that is your comparison, your scout report for Dejan Kulusevski. We have compared him with Lucas Moura, Steven Bergwijn and Heung-min Son. We looked at his stats around Serie A as well. Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on Dejan Kulusevski, and if you enjoyed this scouting report and if you would like to see us bring more of these to you, let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.